right, and what is going on, everybody? Welcome into the channel. Gonna wait for some people to filter in here, but appreciate everybody for being here and joining me. And yeah, Jaguars free agency. I know I have not been posting very much lately, but the big reason for that is because this last weekend I actually became a father. I now have a beautiful baby boy. So we have had a lot of sleepless nights, and it's been kind of a lot, really having that, but it's been I'm very blessed to have it. It's yeah, Charlie Boy. Shout out to Charlie Boy. Shout out to the Bears TV. It says, "What's up? Congrats on a newborn." Thank you guys. Yeah, it's feels good to be a father. I had to step away from YouTube a little bit, but of course, it's a big week for the Jaguars. The Jaguars have a new, a bunch of new players. The Jaguars cut some players. Haven't really been able to talk about all that, but I know Twitter has been a buzz when it comes to everything. Shout out to Gary Lawrence. Thank you, man. Robert in the building. Isaiah, congrats, bro. Yeah, I'm gonna see if my wife will actually bring him in here while this live stream is going on. But definitely like to show you guys all him. YLS says, congrats, Dalton. Become a great father. Fatherhood comes first, big bro. Oh yeah, always, man. Family, fatherhood, being a good husband, all that. So yeah, it's definitely a new era of my life. You guys have seen me start this channel like 8 years ago, right? So you guys have really seen me grow up. I started this channel when I was 23 years old. Now I'm 31. So it's crazy, man. It is definitely crazy that all the stuff that's definitely happened. So why do you think we're not making any moves? You know what? We'll talk about that now. And also shout out to Captain. He says, congrats. I'm due any day now as well. That's awesome, man. All right. So Jaguars free agency is underway. And there's definitely been some mixed feelings about what the Jaguars have been doing. Of course, before free agency started, Jaguar Mitch Morse actually retired. So he will no longer be a Jaguar. Shout out to Gary Lawrence. Became a member again. Appreciate you, bro. But yeah, Mitch Morse, shout out to him. Had a really good NFL career. Played, of course, with the Kansas City Chiefs and a Buffalo Bills. You guys want to see? Huh. Here we go. All right. Here's my baby boy Bjorn. He's got better hair than me. I mean, look at this. But yeah, he's my son. My pride and joy now, right here, right? Here you go. Love you, buddy. Yes. All right, Oakley. All right, had to show you guys that. All right, let's close this door. All right, had to show you guys, man. I think of all you guys as family. Had to show you guys UCF Sunwar, because one day, I always think about, since YouTube is relatively new, what happens to YouTubers when they die? What happens to their channels? But hopefully my son picks up the same kind of football passion as I have, especially passion for the Jaguars. And hopefully one day we can run this channel together, and hopefully one day I can pass this channel on to him. So that would be something that's really, really cool. But appreciate all the kind words. Love you guys. And yeah, I wanted to show you that. So he'll definitely be making a lot of appearances in upcoming streams, especially when my dad and my brother are here and we're doing live Jaguars reactions this upcoming August and September. So yeah, that dude Evan, hit the like button for Bjorn. Hit the like button for Bjorn. Let's go. But yeah, okay. So back to business. So Mitch Morris retired. Jaguars also cut Devin Duvernay, Josh Reynolds, and Ronald Darby, all saving the Jaguars a bit of cap space. And the big thing was, what are the Jaguars going to do with Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram? Were they going to, keep one, keep two, cut them both? What were they going to do? Well, actually, they didn't do any of that. They actually traded Christian Kirk to the Houston Texans for a 2026 7th-round pick. So instead of outright releasing him, the Jaguars were able to get something back. So the Jaguars saved $10 million in that process. And the Jaguars also cut Evan Ingram, which saved the Jaguars $6 million. So with that said, the Jaguars went into free agency with the 7th most cap space after making a bunch of these moves. So, and free agency is definitely tricky because like you have all this cap space, right? But it's not like the draft where you have all these draft picks and you got to draft players, right? I mean, just because you have this cap doesn't mean you have to spend it, because of course you look at later years. I mean, Trevor Lawrence at one point is going to be a pretty big hit on your cap number. Josh Hines Allen the same way. So you got to be smart with it. And you also don't want to tie yourselves into contracts that just make no sense, like maybe a Gabe Davis contract or a Eric Armstead contract, right? So as fun as it is to, be able to get these guys, it doesn't always work out. So with that said, I think a lot of Jaguar fans are a little bit upset because the Jaguars went after a lot of quantity, but Jags fans are upset because maybe there isn't enough quality in their eyes. So, with that said, we were throwing out a lot of names like center Drew Dahlman, safety Javon Holland, cornerback Charvarius Ward, wide receiver Chris Godwin. And yeah, fans are expecting a bunch of, big splash moves like this. But I'll tell you guys this. Look, as fans, I don't tell people this a lot because I haven't really trusted what was going on a lot, but we got to trust the process. I mean, I love the hiring of Tony Boselli as EVP. I love James Gladstone as GM, and I love what we're doing with Liam Cohen. So I'm going to let them do whatever the heck they need to do to fit whatever vision that they have, right? And if we revisit this in 2, 3, 4 years, and if it isn't working out, then I'll probably start to be a little bit critical. But right now, this is what they decided to do. So I am not going to complain too much because these guys know a lot more than me. And with that said, there are Super Bowls aren't built through free agency. And the Jaguars have definitely had their fair share of spending a bunch of money in free agency, right? I mean, 2017, you bring in AJ Boye, you bring in Calais Campbell, Barry Church, and you go to the playoffs for a year. 2022, you bring in Brandon Sheriff, Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, Darius Williams, Foye Oluokun, and that gets you 1 year in the playoffs, but it doesn't really keep you built for the long term, right? Because only one of these guys is still with the Jaguars. And, free agency is really all about Band-Aids. And guys, keep this in mind. Every free agent that is available was not valued enough by their old franchise to be able to be with them going forward. And when you actually look at things, like, let's look at Davante Adams, for example. Davante Adams is on his 4th NFL team. But it took him until he was 32 years old to actually, this is the first time he's ever been a free agent, right? He was with the Packers, got traded to the Raiders, then got traded to the Jets. It took him until he was 32 years old to actually reach free agency. And you also look at it, if you look at recently retired players like Aaron Donald and Zach Martin, both guys, top players at their position, if not top players, definitely top 3 players at their position. They played with the same franchise their whole entire career because their franchises said, you are too good at your position. You are too good at football. We are not letting you go out there and reach free agency. So they stuck with their teams, and now they retired, and both those guys are probably going to the Hall of Fame. So, and you also look, I even took a look at the NFL top 100, and I was like, let's see how many of these players were actually acquired by that team through free agency. And it took me until I hit number 32. Number 32 in the NFL top 100 was a guy named Quincy Williams, our former Jaguar that Urban Meyer decided to outright release. Of course, goes to the New York Jets and becomes an all-pro over there. But nevertheless, there's guys like Khalil Mack, Derrick Henry, Davante Adams didn't hit free agency until their 30s, until they're in their 30s. So it's really a bunch of fool's gold out here, right? And they've been saying all along, Tony Boselli, James Gladstone, we're going to build through the draft. And that's exactly what all of these moves were. So let's go ahead with this free agency haul. Let's go ahead and talk some starters. I mean, the Jaguars signed 2 guys on a defense and 2 guys that will probably be starters. Jordan Lewis, cornerback from the Dallas Cowboys, signed a 3-year, $30 million deal. 29-year-old player. He's an 8-year NFL vet. He'll actually be 30 years old when August comes about. But one indication about how good a player is how does their team react on Twitter. And a bunch of Cowboy fans were very sad to see him go. Always been known as an underrated player. But the question mark here was he's a slot guy. And, the Jaguars, I know a lot of fans were saying, okay, we have Jarrion Jones. He's a slot guy. And we need to find an outside cornerback. But did not happen here. The Jaguars, of course, go with Jordan Lewis at the slot. So it's definitely looking like Jarrion Jones will move back outside. And, actually per at Dan D. Griffiths on Twitter, great Twitter follow, by the way. He actually charted that Jarrion Jones played 1,218 snaps at cornerback on the outside and 377 in the slot. So, with that said, he's definitely had some outside experience, but when he moved back inside his final year at FSU, that was where he made his money. So that was where he got drafted high. But I guess, with James Gladstone and Tony Baselli, they look at him and say, okay, this guy can play outside. And they felt comfortable enough to sign a cornerback to fit that role, that slot cornerback role in free agency with Jordan Lewis. So, yeah, he's going to be the Jaguars starting nickel cornerback with Dorian Jones and Tyson Campbell most likely playing on the outside. And I would doubt Travis Hunter falls to us at pick number 5. But if he does, got to draft him, right? So next up, the Jaguars signed Eric Murray, safety from the Texans, at a 3-year, $22.5 million deal. Now, Jaguars have major holes at safety, right? Andre Sisco was gone. Antonio Johnson was just bad last year. Darnell Savage, I don't know what position this guy is playing. He goes from safety to nickel cornerback. I mean, he's all over the place. And, of course, Dewey Wingard is always just a backup. He'll always be special teams backup. He survives regimes and all that. So, he's on the team. So, yeah, the Jaguars have one starter. I don't know who the other starter will be. Maybe it'll be Darnell Savage. You're paying him starting level money. But, maybe they look to potentially draft the guy at safety. Who knows? But, yeah, Eric Murray. Don't really like his age much. He's 31 years old. I don't really like older defensive backs just because you lose a lot of speed once you hit your 30s. But per Cameron Wolf, the Jaguars see him as a starter. So, yeah, the Jaguars will most likely have their starter in Eric Murray, and they will look to potentially try to improve eventually, right? Eventually. So, next up, the Jaguars didn't sign any linebackers, mainly because Trent Baalke drafted and signed linebackers like it was no one's business. No defensive lineman yet, but I would definitely project the Jaguars to be able to sign a third edge rusher because, I mean, I know one thing. If you ever hear about Tony Baselli on when he was on Jaguars radio and 1010XL, I mean, he was always talking about how the Jaguars need to find another edge rusher. He was very critical of the Jaguars never finding a third edge rusher after losing Arden Key to the Titans. You didn't have one in 2023. In 2024, they signed Travis Gibson, but traded him after the preseason. So the Jaguars relied major and heavily on guys staying on guys staying healthy. And the Jaguars and Trayvon Walker and Josh Hines Allen actually did stay healthy. But yeah, it's just they didn't have any sack production coming from anybody these last 2 years outside of those two guys. So you can find edge for pretty cheap. You can find guys on 1-year deal, whether you want to bring back an older Calais Campbell. DeMarcus Lawrence from the Dallas Cowboys is available. One guy I wouldn't mind bringing back is Dante Fowler Jr. Dante Fowler Jr. is kind of becoming that guy that signs like 1-2-year deals for these different teams, comes in there and gets 6, 7, 8 sacks and is just a solid rotational piece for the pass rush. I wouldn't mind bringing him back. I wouldn't mind bringing him back. Daniel, Bjorn was here at the beginning of the stream, so you're going to have to check out the top of the stream to see that. But yeah, it's and yeah, by the way, I'll address more comments toward the end of it. I just want to get through this so I can have a good video, and then we'll because I don't feel like editing, quite frankly. So I just want to go out here and do a live stream instead. So yeah, Dante Fowler Jr., I really wouldn't mind. So next up, offense. The Jaguars assigned a starting right guard, Patrick Patrick McCarry. He's the guard for the Ravens. He signed a 3-year, $37.5 million deal, $20 million guaranteed. He'll be 28 years old, and he's definitely an immediate upgrade over an aging and injury-prone Brandon Sheriff. Now, when you look at his numbers on ESPN, he has a 94.6% pass block win rate, which was 5th amongst guards, but also a 71.8% run block win rate, which is 27th among guards. So if you do the math, that there's 32 teams, 2 starting guards on each team, that's 64 guards. So if you look at 27th, that's about middle of the pack, just slightly higher than middle of the pack. But you absolutely had to spend some money at right guard because with Brandon Sheriff out, you have nobody to back him up. So Jaguars signed Patrick McCarry, starting right guard from the Baltimore Ravens. Now, next up, the Jaguars stay on the interior. They signed Robert Hainsey, center for the Buccaneers. He signed a 3-year, $21 million deal with $13 million of that guaranteed. Now, Mitch Morse, of course, as we all know, retired earlier, just a few weeks ago. I think just last week, actually. So this is a guy that Liam Cohen knows well. Now, he didn't start in 2024 because the Buccaneers drafted Graham Barton at 26th overall in the 2024 NFL draft. But when we hear James Gladstone talk, he talks about raising the floor, right? This is a raise the floor move because I don't think that he's at any kind of a lock to start for the Jaguars in 2024, 2025. I do think the Jaguars will look to could potentially definitely at the top of the second round find a center prospect that they really like. Maybe a Grace Abella's there. But if they draft the center in the second round, that guy's our starter, right? But if you don't sign a Robert Hainsey and that player goes down, Luke Fortner's back in there starting for you at center. So when you talk about raising the floor, would you rather a Robert Hainsey be your backup center, or would you rather Luke Fortner be your backup center? I don't know a lot about Robert Hainsey, but I can tell you he's probably better than Luke Fortner. So with that said, when you talk about raising the floor, you're talking about depth, and you're talking about guys that if a guy were to go down, you aren't going to be super, super worried. So, yeah, the Jaguars signed 2 interior offensive linemen. Now, moving on, the Jaguars have a quarterback, too, and Nick Mullins signed a 2-year deal. He most recently played for the 49ers and Minnesota Vikings. So, the connection here is Grant Udinski. Of course, he comes over from the Minnesota Vikings. So, with that said, you have a center that comes from Liam Cohen's Buccaneers, and you have a quarterback, too, that comes from your offensive coordinator, Grant Udinski's Minnesota Vikings. So, there will be some familiarity there as they try to merge together some of these offensive schemes to come up with, their own scheme over there for the Jaguars. But with that said, the Jaguars now have 3 quarterbacks on the roster. Of course, Bishop Kenny's own John Wolford is also on the roster. So you have 3 quarterbacks. I was thinking maybe the Jaguars would get Kyle Trask, but it looks like they're going with a little bit more experience, which I don't really mind. And at the end of the day, if Nick Mullins goes in there, if any backup quarterback goes in there, you are probably not going to do very well, right? You're not going to do very well. But his NFL record 5-15, 34 touchdowns and 31 interceptions. So that's quarterback 2, Nick Mullins. And by the way, I'll get to some comments later on. Appreciate everybody for the kind words. Shout out to Quarters. Shout out to Isaiah. Shout out to DG. If you guys have any questions, we'll talk about it at the very end. So with that said, the Jaguars also signed wide receiver Diami Brown from the Washington Commanders. He signs a 1-year, $10 million deal. So he'll compete for outside playing time with Gabe Davis. Of course, now they're talking about moving Brian Thomas Jr. around, playing slot and stuff like that. So there's going to be some definitely spots open up for outside wide receivers, but he has speed and he also has youth. Okay. 25 years old. He had basically 30. His stat line is funny. So in a regular season last year, 30 receptions for 308 yards, but in the playoffs, he had 14 receptions for 229 yards. So pretty much mirroring, but with this, you get speed and, you get a guy with a decent amount of upside, but it's a 1-year deal. So they just need to get somebody in there because they cut Christian Kirk, they cut Devin Duvernay, so they need bodies, right? They need bodies. But yeah, another thing that the Jaguars will probably look to improve in free agents in the draft, right? So next up, the Jaguars kind of overhauling the tight end position. They signed Hunter Long from the Rams to a 2-year deal worth $5 million, and they also signed tight end Johnny Munt from the Minnesota Vikings. And so with this, the Jaguars lost Evan Ingram and Luke Farrell, right? And really, Britton Strange is going to be the feature tight end on this team. Like now with it's funny with the tight end position because tight end position is so scheme specific, right? There's some tight ends that will be very, very useful in one scheme, but not useful in another. So, and with Liam Cohen, he wants to have tight ends in there that can block and catch the ball because with Evan Ingram, great player. I mean, I have no bad things to say about Evan Ingram, but when Evan Ingram is in there and you're most likely going to pass the ball. And if you're not passing the ball, then you have a liability in the run game. And I don't think Liam Cohen wants that. He wants guys to be on there, be able to block and catch. So Britton Strange, we saw what he can do as a receiving tight end when actually given an opportunity. And that opportunity mostly came when Evan Ingram was out and injured. So, with that said, The Jaguars add a Hunter Long, who 8 catches in his 4-year NFL career. He's going to be a blocking tight end. And Johnny Munt has 65 catches in 8 games. So Johnny Munt is more of the receiving threat when you need him. And Hunter Long is definitely more of a blocker. But both these guys, I think, can be somewhat useful in a passing game. But I think it's more about being able to block. But yeah, with that said, the tight end position is going to look a lot different, and they need them to be able to block, especially with the Jaguars. With I don't know how much more they're going to be able to upgrade the offensive line. So you need some guys that are going to be in there to run block, because the Jaguars run blocking just has not been very good. I mean, they're the bottom 8 in 2023 and 2024, and bottom half of the NFL in 2022. Like, we haven't seen Trevor Lawrence actually have a good run game, and I think what Liam Cohen did with the Bucks, like if we could have a top 5 rush attack somehow, man, that would be fun to see what our pass game can do, instead of just solely relying on our pass game and Trevor Lawrence and, Brian Thomas Jr. to do everything. So, yeah, these are our next guys. So finally, we end off with off the tackle, Chuma Edoga from Dallas. He signs a 2-year, $7 million deal. Now, while a lot of Cowboy fans were kind of sad to see um, Jordan Lewis go, not a lot of them were sad to see Chuma go. So, but with that said, he's going to be the Jaguars' top swing tackle. Holy crap. Yo, BB Smith with $100 donation. He says, congrats on the baby, man. So happy for you guys, dude. I appreciate it, bro. And if you weren't here at the beginning, I showed off Bjorn at the very beginning, so definitely go in and look ahead. But I will definitely be we'll be featuring him a lot on this channel, especially during the live reaction stuff. But really appreciate that, guys. Everybody throw some W's in the chat for BB Smith. Thank you, man. Gonna show the wife. She's gonna be very, very excited about that one. But definitely appreciate you, BB. Very, very generous. So moving on, I'm just gonna keep this up here. And I do see a super chat from Tekken. I'll get to that, but BB Smith is a sponsor, so I'm gonna leave this super chat up. Okay. So with that said, he's gonna be the top swing tackle. And I think that they're going to have a quote battle with left tackle Walker Little, but I'd like to see Walker Little actually be able to start from week 1 and really see what he does, because I actually like Walker Little. I think that when he is healthy, he's actually pretty good at left tackle. And now that he actually has a full offseason where he doesn't have to look over his shoulder at Cam Robinson or even Jawan Taylor, and he actually gets a true opportunity to play his natural position and left tackle instead of trying to force him to play right tackle or force him to play left guard. There'll be a battle, but I want to see him play week 1. And, Javon Foster, of course, a 4th-round pick in 2024 out of Missouri. He is still on the roster, but he didn't really show me much in preseason. So he'll be kind of battling for his spot on the roster, especially since this regime did not even draft him. So we'll have to see with that. But yeah, this is the Jaguars free agency haul. Like I said, not a lot of big names, but are the Jaguars better? I don't know. The Jaguars are definitely look different now. I mean, 9 players. If you have a 53-man roster, that's just under 20%. That's about 16 or 17% of your roster kind of turns over. So a lot of additions here, but we'll just have to see. We'll just have to see. Of course, this thing will be built through the draft, but look, let's give Tony Baselli, James Gladstone, and Liam Cohen a benefit of the doubt, because we haven't seen their vision play out, and we've seen us spend a lot of money, and it hasn't led to long-term success. And it just maybe leads to one good year, but none of these guys stay very long. That's the name of the game. So got to hope that we draft well, but I am definitely down to continue to see how these guys do when it comes to building this roster. And I can't wait for the NFL draft, because, man, we have a lot of draft capital. First round, 5 overall pick, second round pick, 2/3, 2/4. My dream scenario is that the Jaguars were somehow able to trade back to like number 7 with the Raiders, pick up some draft capital, then maybe use some draft capital to move up later on if you want to attack another guy in the second round. Something like that would be my dream, but we'll just have to see what we cook up, right? We'll have to see what we cook up. But definitely still have a lot of needs. But yeah, let's build this thing through the draft. So with that said, also Tekken threw in a $2 super chat. Do you think we're rebuilding in a way this year? I don't necessarily think so. I don't think so. I think that the Jaguars will try to win some games. And, I think this kind of speaks to like raising the floor, right? I mean, being able to get the quality depth in here so you're not scrambling if you do have some injuries. Like, I think that these moves show that the Jaguars do like the roster. And, they said it before. I mean, we have pieces here. Like, we have what we hope as quarterback. We have a wide receiver one and Brian Thomas Jr. Like, Tyson Campbell can play some good cornerback when needed. We might have, two pretty decent tackles here. And, we have two edge rushers with Josh Hines Allen and Trayvon Walker. So we have pieces here right now. It's just, can we coach these guys up? Can we scheme these guys up? Like, the amount of one-score games that the Jaguars lost with how bad the coaching was last year, like, not that I'm going to expect like deep playoff runs, but my hope for the Jaguars this year is that we're the 2024 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where we have go sneak into the playoffs at 10-7. We have a really good offense that's scoring 28 plus points per game. We're held back by the defense. That's what I'm hoping. I just want to score points. But with that said, the division isn't that good, which is definitely in our favor, much like with the Bucs last year. So we'll just see. I'm going to trust these guys until they tell me I can't trust them, right? BB says, I'm not expecting too much this season. I hope I'm wrong, though. I'm just going to let these guys do their thing. Yeah, exactly. I hope we bring Minshew back, honestly. Don't see it happening, man. Preston says, raise the floor with downgrades and guys that won't see the field. So I wish I could put a poll in here more easily because I'd love to kind of see what happens here. No troll, but what about all those Minshew comments made back in the day? Yeah, I said a lot of bad things about Minshew. I thought he was pretty overrated, but hey, we can all have our opinions about him, right? I don't know much about these tackles we signed, but anything is better than last year. Yeah, they signed 3 offensive linemen, so I wonder if they take Nick Imawari, pick number 5. I don't think so. I mean, I think Mason Graham is the pick. If not him, then I know a lot of people like Ted McMillan, but with Ted McMillan, it worries me that he's not running the 40 at the Combine and Pro Day. And also his big thing is that he doesn't get separation, which, I mean, I want speed and I want guys that can separate, right? And it's just got me a little bit worried that he's just going to be a big, kind of like a Rashad Bateman kind of guy, just a big body that just doesn't amount to much is my big worry. Shout out to everyone in here, man. We have 162 people on YouTube. Definitely drop your likes. Was going to do no Club Jaguar tonight just because, like, we've been running on no sleep with the baby and want to help out the wife. And luckily the baby's kind of sleeping right now, but, going to end this soon and just be able to relax with my family a little bit because this is definitely an exciting time for sure. Mason Graham for sure. I got him drafted in my pre-free agency mock draft. Yeah, just another thing, build up the trenches, right? Trench warfare. And the Jaguars definitely did not spin big. Tony Baselli and them talk about building the trenches, and he didn't really do that in free agency, right? I mean, you sign starting right, like a right guard to starting right guard money, but you're not breaking the bank for anybody. People talking about if it's a make or break with Trevor Lawrence. Absolutely. I mean, look, I've been a guy that's defended Trevor Lawrence a lot, and the big reason for that is because I don't think that the Jaguars have done right by him. But now I look at the situation, and look, we have the young, innovative, offensive-minded head coach. He has a wide receiver one now. Let's get him a run game, and at that point, there's no excuses for him, right? I would just hate that, we look back and, if Trevor Lawrence fails for the Jaguars, I'd rather him fail when we give him every opportunity to succeed. So with that said, he's got to start playing better. Hopefully we keep him healthy, and hopefully we bring him a run game and just better coaching. I mean, just the coaching last year was just abysmal, and it was pretty telling that NFLPA report that came out just by how players just said that basically, to paraphrase here, Doug Peterson was basically checked out. He did not care. He didn't listen to players. Like, I think the culture was just so bad. The culture was terrible, and it's hard for anybody to really thrive in an environment like that. So we'll see. Dalton, you need to bleach the flow. Plus, with free agent, who are you most disappointed in not getting? I mean, honestly, I would have liked to get a better safety. I don't know how comfortable I am with us starting like a 31-year-old safety in Eric Murray. I would have spent some money on getting a Javon Holland, or I really wanted to get an Eric Reed. I mean, with all the youth and the how young your coaching staff is, I would have liked to bring in an Eric Reed to really be a big veteran on the defensive backfield and a guy that can, comes in with Super Bowl experience, right? We have a first time head coach and a first time defensive coordinator. So it would have been nice to bring in a guy like that from a winning organization. That's the main thing that I would have done different. Now, I would, of course, bring in another edge guy. I know a lot of people, and I'll end with talking about Cooper Kupp. A lot of people really want Cooper Kupp. I mean, to me, Cooper Kupp is just a name. I mean, the the Rams cut him because he's washed. Like, he's 30 years old. He's not. If he was a player he once was, they wouldn't have cut him. And I know it's an exciting name, and I mean, and maybe I'm a little bit biased here because I drafted him the last 2 years in fantasy, and he hasn't done me very good. But yeah, that's my main thing there. But with all that said, appreciate all you guys for being here. I'm gonna end this here and get a little bit of rest, but appreciate everybody for being here. If you guys can, please do me a favor and drop a like for me on your way out. Plenty of content to definitely come, so stay locked in right here. And also, guys, if you haven't already, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. All those things are at UCF_Jaguar, so definitely support me there. Appreciate quarters. Also, a big shout out to BB Smith for the $100 donation. I'm gonna share that with my wife right now. She'll be very, very excited. So, with all that said, appreciate you guys for watching. And no, Club Jaguar is not off until next season. I just I called it off tonight just because, well, usually we're at a bi-weekly thing. Every other week we go on, and then in the season we're every week. But I just, with the new baby being born, I just gotta free up my night because give my wife some rest, just because we haven't been getting much sleep because the baby's been pretty much up all night. So we've been dealing with that. But appreciate everybody so much for watching. Like I said, on your way out, drop a like and go Jags.